Welcome everyone to Collector Corner, a new show from MinnMax all about celebrating the wide, wonderful world of video game collecting. Each episode will be sharing some incredible collections from both the video game industry and the MinnMax community, and hopefully learning a thing or two about video game history in the process, because that's my favorite part. Don't forget to subscribe to the MinnMax YouTube channel, where new episodes of the show will be dropping every other Friday, where you can find all sorts of other fun content to follow us on Twitch as well to see the show live on Thursdays, every other Thursday. Anyways, I am your host, Kelsey Lewin. This is my first time hosting a show like this, so I hope you will stick with me. Today, I am joined by Andrew Borman, who is the digital games curator at the Strong Museum of Play.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being our very first guest on the show.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. No pressure at all. I am super excited to have you on the show. So this is a little bit, normally when we're calling people, I think we're expecting to see just like the YouTuber wall of video games behind them, like I got going here. But you have what I consider to be like a very special collection. So I want to hear about it. Well, first of all, you're kind of like the Xbox guy. That's your thing.
So they say.
Yeah. So, I mean, I say it. So, yeah, tell me about what got you into collecting and what got you into Xbox, first of all.
Sure. So, I mean, just going way back in time to the early 2000s, the Xbox was kind of the underdog platform, but that was the place where kind of all the cool things were happening. Yes, you had mod chips on the PlayStation 2, and you could play pirated games. Who cares? With the Xbox, you could play older pirated games and all sorts of other stuff. So that alone, just the ability to mod your console, to be able to own it, to do what you wanted to do with it, that I think was really interesting. But as, I started to get into games in a different way, it was clear that there was nobody really looking at Xbox in the same way. Even as you go back through kind of looking at Xbox scene history, a lot of it was about pirated stuff. The mod chips that you were using were often using source code that somebody stole from Microsoft. Sorry, you'll hear my daughter and dog in the background a little bit, but that's okay. So like nobody was doing it in a way that was truly documenting what was going on, which was the first real American console that had a chance to compete at all in decades. Atari fans, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're missing a pretty major one there, but
really, no, when you think about it, a decade, Jaguar is Jaguar. It's cool.
Yeah, it had been a while. Okay, let's start showing some stuff while we're...
All right.
What do you want to show us first?
All right. So I'm actually going to kind of point, and I'll zoom in the camera to these big silver boxes that are hiding below the green box that's back there. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I don't want to get up yet. We'll try to go over that way. So when we're talking about...
Wait, is that all Xboxes just stacked in there?
Ignore that. It's just a few Xboxes. No big deal.
Actually, I do have a question because I have stacked Xboxes that high up before, and it kills the disk drive in the bottom one because they are so
The disk
heavy.
drives are dying anyway.
Okay.
Let's be honest.
Fair.
So
okay.
I don't stack the truly rare ones.
That's
You'll
fair.
see that there's none on the one side. So anyway, we're looking at these silver ones. So the Xbox is kind of known as being a PC in console form, right? But the truth is it's actually quite customized. There's lots of, unique hardware going in there, and it does a lot of unique things. But those silver kits in the background are kind of the beginning of what the Xbox is. Those are the alpha development kits that were initially sent to developers starting in about... some early developers got them May 2000 or so, but most started to receive them kind of September 2000. So over a year before launch. And those are quite literally PCs. They use an Intel-based motherboards and everything. So
how do you get your hands on this kind of stuff? Because I assume you're not stealing it from the museum.
No.
So, I know you've been doing this far longer than that.
Yeah. And what's interesting, just to touch on this quick, is, my collection is actually a shrinking collection, if anything. Most people are growing their collections, building something, but because I'm a curator at a museum where I collect video games all day long, I have no need to have video games to that extent. So most of what we'll see today are kind of things I keep around because I like to use. So honestly, the first Xbox Alpha kit, I was in college. It was on sale on the Xbox scene forums for months. Nobody bought it. I bought it. So it was that simple. And the first one, so one of them is complete. One is actually just a case. Microsoft sold a few cases afterwards on eBay. But the complete
this was
one,
like liquidation kind of.
yeah, and that's when they were still doing Dutch auctions and stuff. But so then they also sold a few extra. They gave one away to a fan. But they're Windows-based computers running Pentium 3 processors, GeForce 2 GTS for the Alpha 1, upgraded to a GeForce 3 for the Alpha 2, a sound card. But they are a PC. The first software on them booted to Windows 2000 with an Xbox background at best.
But it's an Xbox.
Exactly. And actually, as you go along, the Alpha 2 was used till May 2001, which was E3 before a launch. They were still using that hardware. So on my kit, I was lucky that there were actually 3 games. One was The Simpsons Road Rage. This is a kit from Radical Entertainment, who would go on to make Prototype, the game, which throws off my eBay searches. It also included Dark Summit, which was cool. But then it also included a game called AI the Circuit, which was based on the AI movie. Completely unreleased. It actually crashes the hardware quite often. Hard crashes it. You have to completely unplug it. And that, as far as I know, is the only kind of version of that out there. What's cool is people who have been on the internet for a long time will remember there was this blogger, Surfer Girl. And she basically said, here's this list of unreleased games that were canceled for basically that generation of games. And as the years have gone on, I've kind of gone down that list and found quite a few of them. And AI the Circuit was probably the first.
Yeah, I mean, you are. This is kind of why you're known as the Xbox guy, I think, is because you've found, like, I mean, is it hundreds? It's at least dozens, right? Of
probably dozens of unreleased
prototypes.
things. Probably a few hundred prototypes over the years of different things. And again, like the people there were other people with this stuff. They were a lot more secretive than I was. You know, I was willing to share pictures, video, all that good stuff. The only builds that are online somehow happen to be 2 of the ones that I have. I don't know how that happened. You can actually build your own clone of that hardware now because of stuff that somehow ended up online and play early Xbox games on a PC. So really cool stuff.
So I'm going to ask a very difficult question for you to answer. And you're probably going to have a bunch of answers to this. What do you think is the rarest thing in your collections? There's probably more than one thing that's like, well, this is the only one in existence. So
they're actually in this. So this is just a data tape case, but it ended up being probably one of the best protectors that I had with some bubble wrap. So I'm going to open this carefully. So I'm going to pull out one more rare thing before we get to this.
Okay.
I'm just going to lean off camera. I apologize. It's the easiest way. So if that was the alpha kit, this is a beta development kit. You can see
this one I've seen.
Yeah, this one's more common. It looks like the final one, but the jewel, the thing in the middle, is actually a shiny kind of metallic. And this was initially going to be the design of the Xbox jewel, but they ended up going with the plastic that you see in final. So this is a beta kit. The hardware wasn't finished. But this one is extremely rare because I've never seen another one. And this one is actually labeled as a debug kit, which most debug kits are like the one that's over here and it's in green. So debug.
Wait, now you got to show that too.
Yeah, we'll get a closer look. I got a lot of those. Those are easy. But so most of the DBT3s, that's what we call them, development tool 3, alpha 1, 2. Technically, those numbers don't make sense, but that's one of those mysteries. So they would normally have these add-on cards that would allow you to connect to a PC, run things over through a SCSI card, do lots of cool stuff with it. This one doesn't have those, and it's not because they're missing, and I'll get closer to that. You can see the holes are still there. Because people do remove those for some reason occasionally, but this one is actually labeled Xbox Debug. And as far as I know, it's the only one that's come up, or the only one that I've seen before. So to get to the most rare thing, the jewel in the middle, right? So that's that design, really cool, awesome. I've already said that they changed it for the final version, but, even to get to those 2 versions, they had to go through many other revisions. So I have 3 of those revisions, and they're the only three I've ever seen that are essentially mini versions of it. They would have been Velcro to kind of a numbered wall or numbered sheet, and these are three very different versions that would have been used for development kits. So I shake when I pick these ones up. So this one looks very much similar to what we just saw in some ways, but kind of in between the retail one. And I know it's hard to focus, but this one actually says Xbox Development Kit on it. So that one's okay. That one's pretty cool. And then we'll go to one that's a little bit, probably my least favorite of them, but it's still very unique. And that's this one, which says Xbox Development Kit as well, but you've got kind of Xbox going on in the background.
Got a totally 2000 looking.
Exactly. Yeah. And this one's labeled number 25, so there's at least 25 different versions that they went through. And then I think this is the coolest one. Still says Xbox Development Kit on it. And this one I think is labeled 28. So.
Oh my gosh.
But the colors are actually the DirectX colors, very reminiscent of, the origins of the Xbox.
I love that. Okay, so there's at least 28 of these.
There were at some point.
Yeah. Do you think that they even made more than one of each of them, or was this just kind of? I don't know.
I doubt it.
Some suits sat in a room and were like, "Okay, which one are we going with?"
Exactly. So my understanding, and it's through reading between the lines of conversations, is there's probably one set, then they probably refined them. You got the larger versions that were like, okay, you have one that looks like this. The beta development kit one did. And then that was it. So I've never seen any more. These came from the guy who apparently designed them. Actually, his son. But these were the only ones that he had. So,
well, you got to tell the story. Who knows? You have to. I mean, maybe this one in particular isn't that interesting, but you've got to have at least a pretty cool story in there of how you come across some of this stuff.
A lot of it is just luck, luck of the draw. But
you're not finding these at Goodwill.
I did find a Kinect when I was in Seattle. That was clearly a prototype unit at one point, but that's Seattle, so you can find
Seattle
things.
I will say Microsoft is a little bit of a leaky company when it comes to prototype controllers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that sort of thing just kind of shows up. No, a lot of stuff is really just through building relationships, being out there, being honest with people, being willing to pay them what I think was a reasonable price at the time. And I think those relationships are what's going to really find the unique things, because to me, like I said, my connection is shrinking. I'm donating a lot of my materials to the museum where I work now because I want people to see them. And in fact, one of the controllers that I don't have here today there's the Alamo prototypes, which are kind of the first that looked like the Duke. It was serial number 10. That's going to be on display next to the original engineering drawings from the woman who actually helped make that into a functional controller. So I've already shrunk some of the rarest things that I had. But no, I think a lot of it is just right place, right time as well. Telling people what to look for, having that education to be like, hey, why don't you look for data tapes, which we can talk about too. I don't care about the CDs so much. It would have been nice to have, but data tapes, that's where the real video game history is. And, that's how things just work out. Just being honest with people. I think, I'd love to say that there's some crazy story that, somebody sent me this rare thing. Now, again, those relationships, though, one of the biggest finds that I ever had was a friend sent me what was the Halo Mega Bloks game for Xbox 360. Nobody knew about it. Was able to show that on YouTube. So that stuff is just cool. Yeah.
So, okay, you have all kinds of stuff that no one's ever going to be able to realistically get their hands on. But what are some of the Xbox things that are super rare, but like still exist? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So one of the things that I was really getting into really right before I joined the museum was looking to Japan. What was being made for the Xbox in Japan, specifically the original Xbox, knowing that there is so little. So these are ones that I actually just did a video of somewhat recently, I think during COVID times. But I think they were selling them or giving them away during Tokyo Game Show one year. but they came up with 6 different designs for these face plates that would go more of top plates. All by, I think, prominent Japanese artists. So there's 6 different designs. I have 2 of them. This was just the one that I grabbed off the shelf. This is really cool. And it just sits on top of the Xbox. But this is really showing, in some ways, the direction Microsoft would go for the 360, having that user customization. And this is something that they do show up on Yahoo Auctions Japan. You know, I've passed on a few of the other ones just because I'm not building my collection. But they're kind of a rubbery plastic. These are ones that will be donated soon just because they really need to be in climate-controlled storage. Otherwise, they just won't last. So I have 2 of those.
Those are really cool. I didn't know that the Xbox had like a faceplate adjacent kind of thing with the original Xbox.
Yeah, I think one of my friends, a fellow collector, just was like, "Hey, have you seen these before?" And I was like, "No." And I doubt they made many. One of the stories that I've learned in talking to people who are actually manufacturing the Xbox is, yeah, they may have said we're going to make 20,000 of these Xboxes for Japan, but we really made 8,000. You know, some number less. I'm making up the numbers, but it's not an exaggeration either. To show just kind of how they weren't being bought by anybody.
How poorly it did in Japan. Yeah. Okay, how about Xbox had a handful of special edition consoles, which I think that I don't know. I think a lot of people know about the Halo one, about the green one, but do you have any of the other ones?
1 second to grab it.
Yeah. All right.
Xboxes take up a lot of room, you know.
Yeah, you can't really have them all in a stack next to you. I get it. I can't tell if the dog thing behind him is like his daughter's toy or a video game. Just so many Xboxes. I love this.
Of course, I set down 2 that were already pretty rare just to get to the rarest of them.
Yeah.
Somehow ended up on the bottom. So ones that I set down were Japanese exclusive ones. One was the Smoke Xbox, which was for the first anniversary.
You gotta show all these.
Keychain. I'll get it, but
okay,
the one is Kasumi-chan. It came with a pillow. That's actually still in storage. The actual pillow is. But anyway, so this one's probably the rarest of the kind of limited, but you can find it sort of Xboxes, and this is for the launch team. So these were really cool. They came with Green Dukes. Those are still in boxes too. So Green Duke controllers, the only ones that weren't black officially. And these
they made the green. They made the green of the like smaller Xbox controller, but not
exactly
the Duke.
So this was right around launch time. It says special edition instead of debug or instead of the Halo logo. And on top it says Xbox Launch Team 2001, and it's signed. It's not actually signed, but it says great work, Bill Gates. So these are pretty cool, but they're things that are definitely obtainable if you're patient. So pretty rare. But, you know, you can find them.
Yeah, this one's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to get excited still by it's a green Xbox, but they picked a pretty good green for it.
Yeah.
Technically, too, every Xbox is green. They're not black, but...
It really?
Yeah, especially if you cut into the black plastic, you'll see that it's actually like a really dark green.
Oh, interesting. All right, I'm learning so much today.
So let me grab these two.
This blue one is awesome.
Yeah, we'll start with the black. The black is the anniversary one. This is obviously not green, but really cool. You can see I've opened mine, removed the clock capacitors. You don't want them to melt your boards.
Yeah, that is I mean, I know this isn't an all-encompassing collector's show, but that is something that is probably worth explaining to people is just that the clock capacitors in Xboxes, is it that they're bad or they're just not like rated to there's two issues the way that I've heard it. One is that, you know, they use a capacitor instead of like a battery to save time. Not the best use of a capacitor. The other problem is if you look at electronics at the time, the early 2000s, is there was basically poor manufacture of capacitors. They call it the capacitor plague. So it's not just Xboxes that are failing. Pentium 4 motherboards in particular, because of the amount of power that went into some of those. Capacitors leak, they burn through things. That's the end of it. So it's not just Xboxes. It could happen to anything. And you can either replace them, or I know a lot of people just straight up remove them, because all it's hanging on to is, that home screen, like
Yeah,
what
and
time is it, right?
and it's only holding on to the time when you unplug the system too, and it's not going to last forever. You're talking about sometimes
Right.
hours or days if it's at the best possible functionality. It's not going to hold on to it for months. If you keep your system plugged in, it's not going to lose the clock either, as far as I can remember. So, yeah. So this one's the Dead or Alive Ultimate, the Kasumi-chan console. Like I said, the box itself has a big picture of Kasumi on it from Dead or Alive. This was a re-release. It was initially going to be called Dead or Alive Online. This one is Ultimate, the final release version, but the museum has a case for one that says Dead or Alive Online. And it's really cool. So
Donated by you?
No, actually, that was only one of 3 that I've found. Yeah, I know. Chat says we need the box, but it's actually in storage. I just moved earlier this year, so not everything is here or accessible. So yeah, this one's just cool. Just because I think the color is really striking. The way that the light hits it is really, really cool. I feel like the plastic that was used is slightly different than the plastic used in like the blue controllers too, for some reason. That or it's just the grime of an Xbox hand on them. But yeah, these are just really. There's probably a few thousands of them. There was a point in time where I was trying to go through and document how many of these were made. But Microsoft themselves changed the number a few times. So if you go back, it's like at one point they're saying 5,000. I think at one point they're saying 10,000. And then you're just like, all right, how many did they actually make? And nobody knows. So just a really, really striking color. Not one that you really associate with Xbox. They did come out with, I think, a Halo 2 version in Asia. Plus, it's just a blue version in Canada and maybe some other places. But it's just a really striking color and probably one of the rarest of the translucent colors. Now, there's other rare ones that I don't have. There's white anniversary ones, but I was never that interested in the retail stuff, honestly. It's just one of those, like, I had to have this one. Then I had to have the other one because I was already paying for shipping from Japan. So what's another 4 Xboxes? Turns out it's hundreds of dollars, but...
So, yeah, your focus is really, you've probably a very little actual retail stuff, right? It's a lot of...
I have like 350 Xbox games. I had a lot of Vita games, which are now gone, thank you. I still have quite a few Switch games. I have games, but generally it's focused on stuff that I want to play or want to use. I do actually have a Mountain Dew Xbox as well. That one's in terrible condition. It got damaged in shipping. I was very sad. But yeah, it doesn't do anything for me. Like Xbox, because nobody was documenting them, I was buying a lot of the games. But at this point, there's people out there with bigger collections than I have. But I like to think they all stand on my shoulders. But we still have lots of rare stuff we can talk about.
Yeah. Let's go through it.
So Xbox comes out in Japan, comes out with a smaller controller. Big deal because there's a whole story behind the Duke and why it was the size that it was. Basically, nobody with the manufacturing capabilities to make them smaller could actually want to work with Microsoft to do that. There's other stories there. But the fact is that Japan would get a smaller controller than we would initially get, which left everybody thinking, like, this is clearly a last-minute thing that they're going and trying to make a smaller controller for the market. But honestly, Microsoft already knew from the start that their controller was too big. Very, very big. So this controller is an engineering sample of what would become the controller S. So it's completely clear. It's a different clear plastic. And unfortunately, it has started to yellow, even though I don't keep it in the sunlight. It's just plastic how it is. And this is really interesting because, one, it has Japanese buttons. The buttons on the Japanese controller are actually different than the ones we would get. But it also has other clear parts. It's hard to see, but obviously it's got a clear D-pad. But you can almost make out that the shafts of the joystick are clear as well. And that's all, and actually the triggers are clear as well. And that's just to show kind of how the manufacturing was coming along. It's a smooth plastic as well. So you can see the inside. Xbox. Yeah, to see. I actually have one of those prison LCDs the other way too. Yeah.
Just for anyone who's watching and isn't familiar, when you have electronics in prison, they have to be entirely clear. So there's some interesting, like, completely clear TVs and stuff out there, which are kind of fun.
Yeah. So yeah, this one is completely clear. So you can see how it's all going together. It has a different jewel than the Japanese controllers did. The Japanese controllers had an all-green one, which another fun fact is they actually released before the Controller S, or around the time the Controller S came out in the US, they released a Japanese limited edition controller in the US and in some other places that were the
Is that
Japanese
why I come
branding.
across them?
Yeah. So
Okay, I've had some just traded in randomly at my store, and I've always been curious. I'm like, where'd you get a Japanese Xbox
yeah,
controller?
so they definitely sold them. I bought mine at Best Buy. I was like, oh, look at this, so cool. But yeah. So to get back to the story, Xbox would launch in November 2001. This controller is from July 27th, 2001. So this is actually predates the launch of the Xbox everywhere. So already, as of July, they were committing to making a smaller controller for other markets. And this says that it's the DVT development tooling, Xbox transparent. This device has not been approved by the FCC, serial number 453. I know it's probably not going to focus. But I mean, I think this kind of rewrites history for Xbox controllers in some way, that Microsoft was just too ignorant to know that their controller was too big. No, they very much knew that it was too big. But the fact was that nothing could be done about it.
They just couldn't wait any longer.
So only a few of these I've seen over the years, but really an important piece of history that will be donated sooner rather than later. Let's
All right,
keep
what
going.
else we got? Yeah, keep
All
going.
right. So we could talk more about Xbox. Like I said, there is an Xbox debug kit over here. It looks like the green one from before. It just says debug kit. Big difference is the software. It doesn't run retail software natively. It has 128 gigabytes of RAM. A lot of things that I have end up being software based, which is cool. But I am a big fan of Final Fantasy XI. So some of you may have seen, I have these nice Japanese beta kits for Play Online and one for Final Fantasy XI. Really cool things, mostly because massively multiplayers are so hard to document. So these came with a nice binder that goes through kind of some of the menus, the characters, the locales, and you can try to pick through some of the Japanese and find stories that no longer exist in the retail version of Final Fantasy XI.
Oh, wow.
Excuse me. We have lots of equipment. We have all sorts of other stuff. But I also have other development hardware that isn't Xbox. Hidden by the silver PS2 is one way or the other, or the giant Xbox rather. There's a giant PS2 back there.
A giant PSP?
A PS2.
A PS2?
Yeah, so that black one kind of to the side of the Xbox is actually...
Oh, you gotta bring that up. Everyone's got to see this.
All right, give me one second.
Sorry
Yeah,
to keep
problem.
making you get up, but if you guys haven't seen this test PS2 yet, these are fun.
And it's a big hunk of junk, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It really is that heavy. I don't think he's exaggerating.
This one's a little dusty. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm only partially exaggerating. So yeah, this is a PlayStation 2 development kit. It's quite large. It's got a full computer inside along with the PS2 hardware. And like I was saying, it's a hunk of junk. So the plastic that they use is actually degrading pretty quickly. Shipping them is a nightmare. I actually have the faceplate off of mine because the DVD drive gets stuck. It uses similar hardware to the first model of Japanese PS2s, and they're not built well. But what's really cool is they're actually meant to be interfaced through another computer. So you're networking into basically a Red Hat Linux side of things. And you can run, sorry, I'm out of breath from this thing. You can run development software right through the network. This one also has the rare DVD emulator installed, which includes a second hard drive, which is fun. And that just lets you... Yeah, so that just lets you throw images, DVD images, CD images onto a hard drive and run them that way instead of using the crappy CD drive, which I have a CD stuck in right now, I think. Actually, the heatsink fell off. Taking it apart is a mess. You can hook up an external PS2 hard drive like the initial PS2s as well. You can do VGA output, which, I mean, technically retail PS2s can as well. But yeah, it's a hunk of junk, and I hate it.
It sure is a conversation piece, though.
Exactly, and I have it around because I need it to run development software that doesn't run on retail PS2. So they have a lot more RAM in here. You can do all sorts of networking things. So when you have a prototype, especially ones that weren't just burnt to CDs and sent to press outlets, a lot of times you need the specialized hardware to actually use them. So that's why I kind of call my collection a functional collection. The things I keep here right now are things that I think I will need to just keep working through the collection that I have.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to show us before we start wrapping up?
I got lots of stuff. Things? We got lots of stuff. We'll roll through a few quick ones here.
Okay, let's
continue on the PlayStation. This is one of 2 development cards needed for PlayStation 1 development. So these would they have ISA, they're ISA cards. They go into old PC hardware. You can connect a CD drive to it, controller ports to them. I think this one's the CPU board, but somebody will correct me when I'm wrong. And essentially run software through Windows 95, Windows 3.1, that sort of thing. So really cool. Also crappy hardware.
It's one of those things where, like, if you saw that sitting on someone's shelf, you wouldn't be like, ooh, video game prototype. Right. You'd be like, why do you have old circuit boards on your shelf?
But again, they have more RAM, and I have games that are formatted for development systems with more RAM, so I need this to work, and it doesn't currently work. So to get to a newer PlayStation hardware, the PlayStation 3, we have a big development kit over there. That's heavier than the PS2. We're not going to pick that up. So this is actually a prototype of the PlayStation 3 Super Slim console.
And it's just a box.
Yeah, it's just a box that picks up dust. Most of the dust is legitimate dust that was on it when I got it. It says prototype.
That's ugly.
So for a while, it was thought that they didn't make any PS2 or PS3 development kits in the Super Slim form. They've since kind of trickled out. But on eBay one time, there were a bunch of these. I missed it, so I traded something for this one. And it has, hold on, let's see if we can do this without breaking it. Somehow, the panel...
it still does the little...
But it just pops off.
Oh, I hate it.
Yep, it's awful. But so I've actually seen one more of these. I know a few more exist. I almost bought the other one of these because it was shortly before I joined the museum. But pretty cool. And we'll round out with just a few other quickies. So I know we're coming up on time. We've got, so Nintendo has some representation. We have a Nintendo T-Dev, kind of a debug kit. You often saw these at universities to test things. It's currently unplugged for safety reasons, but you can plug a USB cable into this, connect it to your PC. It has more RAM. Really useful to run software. I was using this one to back up NR disk, the GameCube development kit games. Because you could hook it up, you could dump it through you could run Swiss through the USB, which is a kind of homebrew tool, then copy the disc right onto SD card.
How come they never made a brown GameCube?
I know, it's really cool, isn't it? This one's quite beat up, but it's, again, functional collection rather than anything. I also do have a PSP development kit.
But it's not giant.
It is giant, actually. So it looks like at first it's just the controller. Hey! I'll show you. This is running Oblivion on it, the PSP version that never came out, which I happen to have basically everything that was ever made for it. So if you let me unplug it real quick.
Okay.
I got to power it down. Actually, while that powers down, we'll show off a couple quick things. We'll go quick. Beta development kit for the Xbox 360, which is pretty cool. Use it, again, early hardware, but the USB flaps are different. They're actually rubber, and I'm actually afraid to open it. They kind of open from side to side instead.
Nothing good ever comes of rubber.
And this one's actually damaged a little bit, but it works, and most of these do not work. All right. We've got cell phones laying around. We've got software laying around here. There's so much we can show. We've got Korean phones, early running ATI graphics on a cell phone from the mid-2000s.
That's really something cool. You do a lot of work with at the museum, right? Is a little bit of like cell phone and
little bits
forgotten game preservation.
Yeah, a lot of these are ones that, I want to learn more. I wanted to do more, but it's hard to justify. All right, let's go out and buy 100 cell phones from Japan to see what's on them. Because then what do we do with them afterwards? So this one is cool because it runs an ATI graphics card or graphics chip on there, so it has early 3D things. I also have prototypes that run on similar hardware. Turns out finding the USB cable for this is harder than finding the phone. And finding the phone was difficult. The PSP is still turning off, I'm sorry.
Oh no.
So this is the PSP development tool.
Oh, that's a lot bigger than a PSP.
Yeah, so this has a lot of extra features in it. We've got VGA output for video. You've got the Wi-Fi on here, but you can do Ethernet for development. You can plug in a foot switch to do debugging onto it. And then you connect through that controller that I showed before. It's just a controller. No actual PSP hardware in there. We've got software. Let me just finish up with kind of the crown jewel of the collection. I know we're way over time at this point.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. We'll run this a little bit later than I don't think people will complain about it being a little longer than normal.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I obtained before joining the museum was a collection of data tapes from a certain UK development company. Another collector got to basically these recyclers who were coming in and clearing out the studio, so they were going to go in the garbage. But another collector found out about the CDs, and they bought it and have since disappeared. So there's lots of CDs out there, super rare. Really, the CDs represented most of kind of 2000 and back for the company's history, and they went back to the early 90s working on big properties. I, on the other hand, was like, all right, what else do you have? You have data tapes. And they sent me actually a development kit box for the Xbox, which was huge, filled of these data tapes. And these data tapes range everywhere from 10 gigabytes to 300 gigabytes. And there are backups, everyday backups, project backups, you name it, day-to-day things, communications, other things we shouldn't talk about. And they just have a ton of data and really go into, how games are made every day. They're not these curated, all right, let's send it to Game Informer. Hi, Ben. And let them play an early build of these things. But rather, it's literally like, hey, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's have fun. We've seen leaks from Nintendo that have emails and that sort of thing, and we see how people act, so it's understandable why they don't want those sorts of things out there. But that's the only way that we're going to preserve history, and eventually these will be off to the museum as well. But I've had to pioneer ways of backing these up and accessing data of what's essentially 2002, 2003 up to about 2007. So 4 or 5 years worth of data for a studio that was spread amongst at least 2 continents. And that still doesn't have everything. So
yeah, I mean, to just kind of like put the cherry on top of the sundae here and wrap it all up. I mean, that is your reason for collecting, right? It's
exactly.
Just to kind of show how deep the rabbit hole goes with video games, like that it's so much more than just the finished product on the shelves.
And it's about people. It's about more than just you or I. It's more than the journalists. It's more than, even the CEOs that we see on TV or on the internet all the time. It's those people that just work. It's the people that are doing outsourcing work that you literally get no credit for. Even this company, even though they put out a few big hits, there were titles that they worked on that then they weren't credited for, and nobody knew that they worked on them. Thousands of hours put into something, all for it to disappear and you never get to talk about it. And I think that's a shame, and I think that's something that both of us are trying to fix as time goes on.
Absolutely. All right. Does that wrap it up for your collection, you think?
It wraps it up for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get to everything from everybody's collection, I'm sure. But Andrew, thank you so much for joining us on Collector Corner. And in just a moment here, we're going to be joined by someone from the Patreon, MinnMax Patreon community. So look forward to that in just a minute.
Thank you very much.
Hi, we've got the Uncharted Wolf here, who is going to be showing off his collection now. MinnMax and Collector's Corner is made possible through our awesome supporters on Patreon. If you would like to have a chance to share your collection on the show, you can join the Patreon at any tier, submit a description of your collection. That's patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Anyways, we are joined by the Uncharted Wolf, who is a Patreon supporter on MinnMax, and he's got some pretty cool stuff, it seems like. This is my first time seeing this collection. I know Andrew, so I knew what to expect with that. Don't really know what to expect here, so I'm really excited to see. If you want to just take it away, tell us a little bit about yourself and start showing us what you got.
Yeah, so my collection isn't nearly as interesting as Andrew's, I'll say that immediately. And
they can't all be.
Unlike Andrew, there is 0 Xbox, unfortunately. I have never collected for Xbox in my life. It's nothing against the company, it's just not what I've grown up with.
Hey, it's not a super collectible console. That's in my experience.
It's mainly my collection is only really Sony and Nintendo, not even Sega. I don't allow Sega on my shelf.
All right, so you told me that you were going for a full, was it Pokemon collection and Castlevania collection? Is that right?
My strategy was basically I wanted to go for every Castlevania released after Symphony of the Night and like nothing Sega related, but like I want to go Symphony of the Night, everything on the PS1 and afterwards because I don't really collect for anything pre PS1. I kind of stick with what I grew up with. And
For
Pokemon, I've
Castlevania,
tried.
that's a smart move, money-wise.
Yeah, those games are expensive. I've already spent hundreds on some of those games. They are incredible, but God, they are rare.
All right, you want to flip the camera around and start showing us some of the stuff? All right.
Okay, so that's the actual console setting. I got Bloodborne, obviously, to represent. But the actual collection, there it is.
Awesome.
Yeah,
so,
I've been working on this for about... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've been working on this collection for about 3 or 4 years. I got the shelf recently to actually be able to display everything. And I'm pretty proud of what's been working on. We got like Nintendo stuff on the top 2 shelves and PlayStation on the bottom 3, and then manga and light novels, like anime stuff in the middle.
Are those handhelds you've got in the kind of displayed out there?
I guess let me just open it up real quick.
Yeah.
Got a nice little showcase. I got these little stands from Rose Colored Gaming, amazing website. They have literally every controller and handheld stand. We got a 2DS XL, DSi, GBASP, and a PSP. I've been trying to get more handhelds, but those are like the main ones I focused on.
Yeah, I appreciate a nice like outward facing collection, you know, where you've got stuff displayed nicely and it just it looks clean like that.
Yeah, as you can tell, I'm starting to run out of space. You see, even on the Switch right here, they're like kind of stacked up on itself. I got some Japanese imports if I can show this off real quick. Cool games I got. These are games that didn't get a Western release, so I just wanted to grab them, physically for the collection, but also like Switch is region free. This one I'm very happy about. I love Phoenix Wright, so I'm glad to finally get a copy of the trilogy.
Trilogy is so they're all region free, but I know at least with that trilogy, it just automatically detects whatever language your Switch is in and just so it'll just be the English version of that game, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's the same with the. I know for the first one I showed, the Overlord game, that one I know also does it. I haven't checked with the middle game yet.
I didn't even know there was an Overlord game. Okay, so what is?
I love Overlord.
So you sold me on your collection because you said you had some fun stories about how you got some of these games. So let's hear them, because that's my favorite part.
Okay. So first of all, Metroid Fusion. This is a bit more tame. This is my boxed copy, complete in box. I got it from some dude on Facebook Marketplace. This is one of the better deals I've gotten. He had like 3 Pokemon games, Pokemon Crystal, Emerald, or not Emerald. Fire. I think it was either Fire Red or Leaf Green. You collect long enough, you start forgetting what games you own. But like, yeah, it's complete in box and everything. And this goes for around $200, complete in box. I was able to get it off the guy with everything else for like $60. So
hey, that's
one
great.
of the best deals I've ever.
Yeah, that's an awesome deal.
More interesting story. Aria of Sorrow here, not complete in box. It has no manual, but it has the game, and that's a very important part of the story. So me and my friends, we were coming down from Houston. We had like a big wedding we were going to. And what happened was we saw an antique shop. We were like, oh, let's check it out. And I go over, I ask like, hey, do you guys have any video game stuff? And all they had were like crappy PS2 sports games. And this old lady, like 70, 80 years old, she came out, she was like, oh, video games? I think we have some old boxes, but like, it's just the boxes and crap. And I go over and it's like a bunch of like crappy, like third-party box games for the GBA and everything. But then Aria saw it right here. I checked it out. I was like, oh, how much is this? And she's like, just take it for free. It doesn't really matter. She didn't know it had the game inside.
I mean, they are pretty light when you don't have the manual and stuff in there. And then also, the Game Boy Advance games themselves are so light. I can see where she might have just been like, yeah, it feels light. I don't know. It feels empty.
That honestly felt like way too much of a steal. I felt really bad for taking it.
Okay, but the funny story, I hope it's funny. You said, you told me that one of your friends got injured helping you buy a game. I need to hear this story.
So, okay, it wasn't that he was helping me buy a game. Right here, Monster Madness Grave Danger. Not a very good game, but the story behind this game is really interesting. So my friend, he's in like a bad neighborhood. He's like in gangs and stuff, that type of stuff. I've known him forever, though. It's hard for me to like kind of get rid of him. But what happened was he called me up. He's like, "Hey, you collect games, right, man?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I collect games." And he was like, "Okay, cool. What's it called? I got this game I had for years. I'm trying to get rid of it. Like, you're my friend. I got you. This game is awesome." It's not awesome, by the way. But he was like, "Yeah, this game is super cool. You should check it out." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I meet him. We were going to meet at the movie theater because we were going to watch a movie immediately after. And I'm just like waiting outside. I waited like an hour. I'm like, "Where is he?" And then I just texted him. I'm like, "Hey, man, what's up?" He's like, "Oh, dude, I got shot." I was just like, "What? Are you okay, man? Like, what happened?" He's like, "Yeah, I was walking to my car and there was like some big like fight going on, shots fired and everything. It just barely grazed my shoulder, but I'm on my way." I'm like, "Dude, go to the hospital."
Oh my God.
And he's like, "Nah, man, we had plans and everything." So I make sure to keep this game with me and keep it very safe. You understand?
Is this your most like?
A lot of crap for it.
This has got to be your most like sentimental value game to you, I assume, right?
Yeah, because the game's not really worth that much, and it's not even that good of a game. But I make sure to keep it safe because he went through.
Someone got shot over it. That's that makes it a good game.
That's a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Sorry. Go ahead.
So, okay, what are some of your goals with your collection? What are you trying to grow it to? What would you like to add to it?
Well, first I would like more space. That's the big one.
Sure.
Right now.
Yeah.
The problem, I'm in my bedroom, as you can see, so I don't necessarily have the most space. But what's it called? I want to try to get I just want to buy what I want to buy. That's actually really what it is. I'm not trying to go for the biggest collection, a complete collection of every game. I just want every game I buy because I want to play it. That's really my philosophy.
That's a good one to have. What is what was the first game that was like, okay, I am collecting now? When did you start considering yourself a video game collector?
This bad boy right here. So technically I really started with the PS3 and DS and everything, my console that I owned back then. But Paper Mario showed me how cool game collecting can be because I remember buying it in 2014. I had a GameCube still from like back in the day. I got this game for $15. And then years later, I checked, and it was like skyrocketing up price. The time I checked, it was like, I think 50 or so. And that's when I was like, oh, maybe I should like actually really start saving these games. Nowadays, it goes for like 120. So I was like, really, I brought up that idea of like, I should save these games because I don't know if I'll ever be able to buy them again, especially with the way Nintendo re-releases their games nowadays.
Totally. Yeah, GameCube stuff they are not super kind to.
Yeah.
All right, what is the rarest thing in your collection?
Rarest? It's actually a three-way tie. The Aria of Sorrow right here. Since it has no manual, it's like a 150, but still, like it's pretty expensive. Right here, Black Label, Pokemon XD, Gale of Darkness. I don't actually know if it had a player's choice. Please correct me. But
it did have a player's choice, yeah.
Oh, it did? Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah, no one bought it. $200 for this, but I was able to get it for $150 because I went to this guy I know, and he usually gives me really good deals on games. And one more game. I had one more thing. Oh, the Metroid Freezer. And I already talked about that one.
All right, why don't we just do a slow pan through some of your titles here, if you want to just get close so we can see some of them, because I'm going to try to make my screen a little bigger so I can see it a little better too.
Sorry, the Switch is going to be a little harder.
I know. Those spines are awful. They don't look very good on a shelf.
If you could see, I am shaking a lot, mainly because of nervousness.
You're doing great.
Right
Hey.
here, actually. Castlevania, Order of Ecclesia, Portrait of Ruin. I am still missing Dawn of Sorrow.
Yeah, the Castlevania games are tough to get. They're not cheap. Are
Pokemon
the
stuff,
empty boxes just empty, or are those loose games you have?
Oh, these are loose games. Yeah, I'm trying
Okay.
to want to get boxes for them, but some of these games are decently rare. I legitimately don't. I think there's a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon in one of them that goes for about like 90 or so. But like, yeah, they're pretty expensive. I want to actually get like boxes for them. But yeah,
Yeah.
like we got the 3DS stuff here. I'm moving a bit fast. I'm sorry.
No, this is great.
More
Oh, you
empty
got some
boxes.
Nintendo, some N64 stuff hiding
Yeah,
back there.
yeah.
I didn't
I
even
can
see those.
show them real quick. Yeah, I would like to display them more, but I don't really collect for 64. Just Mario 64.
Hey,
One of
you
my
got
favorite
the
games of all time,
classics.
Skating 2.
Yeah.
Paper Mario, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo-Tooie. I had
If
Mission
you're
Impossible as well, but I got rid of it.
if you're only gonna have like 5 or 6 N64 games, that's pretty solid.
And I can quickly pan over the Japanese stuff. I know you guys don't care about that.
No. This is, I mean, we started the show to be about video game collections, but I think it's cool. I think it's especially cool when people have other kind of other collections going on that aren't necessarily video games. So are these just like mangas and stuff you like, I assume?
Yeah, basically, I recently got into anime about a year ago, and then I started getting to manga slightly after. So I basically just collected like my favorite series. Like initially stuck with my big three: One Piece, One Punch Man, and Overlord. But then I went into like random stuff here and there. I just
Is the
like little
Fire
mangas that I
Emblem
kind of.
is the Fire Emblem
That's
thing
not.
a
Hang
manga?
on, this one's a big boy. This is the Art of Fire Emblem Awakening.
Ooh,
It's one of my favorite games, so I wanted to make sure to get it. But it's like a big old art book for this game,
that's
and
awesome.
it shows like all development notes and stuff. I love it. I put it back later. And then there's PlayStation 5 and 4. That Spyro statue got recently on sale for like $70. I was really happy.
That's a very nice. I don't do a lot of statues myself, but those are really cool.
Yeah,
They
I
make it
love
look
statues.
nice.
They just make like a nice little showpiece, basically.
Yeah.
And then down here, as you can see, it's gone really bad for PS3. This was my main console I collected for, so I still collect very much for it, and I'm starting to run out of space. I was really proud right here, Drakengard 3. This one's going for 100. I got it like off a really good sale, and then Square Enix reprinted it, and now it's back to 20. And it's like, oh, damn.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like
Uh,
mine, I got a brand new one for real cheap not that long ago, but must have been
Shout outs
that
to Yang
reprint.
Ye. Okay. This one's just sad. I have 2 copies of Sonic Unleashed.
Any particular reason why?
Remember when I said about forgetting you own games? That's what happened.
Oh yeah,
basically.
yeah, that's fair.
I
That's fair.
do not want to go into that because that'll make me sad.
Do you
Right
track your
here's-
games in a spreadsheet or anything, or have any sort of like collector app you use?
Scott the Waz, big YouTuber if you know him, he said it perfectly, in which it makes game collecting less fun for me
To
at
track
least.
it?
Because it makes it feel like more like a job, and I'm like, nowadays I just take a picture of my collection and I just cross-reference it.
Yeah, there you go. That works well enough. It stops working
then
so well
PS
once it starts being multiple walls.
like an actual job instead of like making it fun, you know? Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So
You got
PS2
like most
stuff.
of the Ratchet and Clank games. Is that a collection you're going for, or is that just an accident?
I pretty much own almost all of them. Hey, so I have Ratchet 1, 2, Deadlock, No Up Your Arsenal. That's depressing. I own the collection on PS3, which is actually going for quite a bit recently. The 2 future games, All for One, Into the Nexus. I don't own Full Frontal Assault. It's one of the tragedies of my collection, honestly. It's only $20, but like I refuse to buy it. And I own the PS4 game somewhere here. I'm sorry, I'm like going a bit fast. It's somewhere. It's R. I don't remember where R is in the alphabet for some reason. There it is. But yeah, no, everything's alphabetized, and that's really helpful. But then it also makes me feel dumb because I'm like, when is R in the alphabet? And then PS2, PS1. I want to focus a bit more on this. I remember buying a few games. Dino Crisis I actually bought recently. I was very happy to buy it. I got it for like 20
Nice.
bucks. I would like to get Dino Crisis too, but I think that's a bit rare. And then PSP, I got a PSP for the first time. As a lifelong Sony fan, I never owned a PSP. About half a year ago, I bought one. It is an incredible console, and I want to try to get as much as I can. And of course, I own Castlevania.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, I'll just leave it there. And I guess that's really like a pan over of the collection. I'm really proud of it. I've been working pretty hard on it, especially recently. And then, like, obvious, like, random games that are pretty rare that I want to point out. Metroid Prime Trilogy, got that for, like, $100 game. I was very happy about that. Both PokePark games, I just want to mention this. Both PokePark games, they're bad games, but I love them to death. I always go back and play them every now and then.
But you're going for a full Pokemon collection, right?
Of course, yeah. Pokemon's really hard because there's so many games.
Yeah.
I have, like, most of the DS ones. Platinum, White, Black 2. I own a bunch of them loose. As you can see, this is a bag of like some GBA games.
Yeah, there's no good way to display that stuff. It's
there's never a way. It's depressing.
There's a guy who makes like little standees that are kind of like a stair step looking thing that it makes it look much like, I don't know, it's presentable, but it's still just, it's not presenting the collection visually is I think an eternal problem that a lot of people struggle with.
It's very difficult. Yeah, I try to, as you can see, I mean, they even have like this thing full of 3DS and DS games. Again, I couldn't really display. I'm so sorry to ask if you have any tips for like, should I add an extra shelf or just buy a whole new shelf altogether? Because I am starting to really run out of room at this point.
You're eventually going to need an entire extra shelf. So at some point you got to pull the trigger on that, but you can definitely stack DS games. That's a space saving thing in the meantime. You can probably do those too high.
Yeah, no.
Anyways, thank you so much for showing us your collection. Is there any last words you want to say about it?
I guess thank you so much for having me. If I reverse the camera back to my face, I am sweating like crazy because I'm extremely nervous. So I'll just leave it on this. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I've always wanted to show this collection off to people. I show it off to all my friends as I can, and I think the show is so awesome just for letting even the community show up there. You know, I don't want to say my collection is small, but definitely compared to like you, Kelsey, like I think I'm proud of what I have at least. That's all I'm really going for.
That is the perfect segue into the end of this show. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, we definitely want to keep taking community submissions from the MinnMax community. So if you support us on any tier, patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, you can have a chance to have your collection featured on this show. We're going to be doing this every other Thursday with YouTube videos going up every other Friday. And I hope we get to do a whole lot more of these. So thank you guys so much for joining us. And we'll see you next time in a couple of weeks.
If you thought, hey, this video wasn't bad, well, there's a whole lot more like it on MinnMax's YouTube channel. Please help us out by subscribing to our channel and checking out the MinnMax Show podcast, also available on your favorite podcast app, the best, most thorough discussion about games on the internet with the deepest dive, our monthly community trivia show with prizes called Trivia Tower, and a whole lot more. Thanks so much for your support, everybody. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it.